Thank you.
That last session was great. Let's give them a hand again. They did a nice job. Nice job, ladies. Our sessions with civic and community leaders, we're going to hit a bunch of topics today. Briefly, I'll introduce the panel, and we'll get into some items. I'll hit a couple interesting items that may get your hair up a little bit. But it's like a town meeting for our part of this presentation. First, I'm Obie Kiper. I'm a graduate of Minnesota State University, both undergrad and grad. Quite frankly, it was the best years of my life other than having babies. Other than that, it's been good. Without the education, you guys, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in. I'll say this, education for me was economic independence. And I would encourage all of you that haven't graduated, please make sure you do. For the ladies, you want to graduate for yourselves, your families, and most important, so you aren't dependent on some dude. For the guys, you want to graduate so you can assume responsibilities and be respectful of women, yourself, and your families. So that being said, I would encourage all of you to do that. My experience is a humble experience. We migrated from a small town in Paris, Missouri, about 800 people. I got a cousin sitting right there, that's Spike Moss. He can, and coming from that town, where in reality, well, it's fact, we had no hot water, no lights, nothing. So we came from the depths of, I won't say hell because it was fun, you know, but in reality, education was really important. I didn't want to be there as an adult, okay? So, first I'd like to introduce Dolores Fridge. Dolores, you guys, if you don't know her, you need to know her. She's a renowned professional, educator, civic and community leader, as well as she's had top-notch jobs. She's worked for the governor, she was commissioner, and I'm going to let her explain that in details. She was commissioner of human rights. She was director of many. I said, Doris, would you give me your resume? Man, I'm going to show you all what she sent. You understand?
He said resume. I said, where's my resume?
It's a good thing I got through college, you know, because look at all this, you guys. It's a fine print, brother. Yeah, I mean, you know, you get old. Look at all these pages. I got to reading all this stuff that I was talking to Dr. Chapman over here. Man, I looked at this stuff. I saw some big words in here. I couldn't even pronounce them. So she's going to have to go through some of this. But just briefly, she was Chief Resolutions Officer from Medtronic, one of the biggest private sector businesses in the nation. She was the highest ranking African American person. It's very hard to get to that level in businesses like that. Associate Vice Chancellor, that's MINSCU, Minnesota State Colleges and Universities. Again, another high ranking position that very few have ascended to. I want to show you all this fine print now. You guys think I'm kidding. Look at all that. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that assistant vice chair of what again?
Associate Vice Chair, Minnesota State Colleges and Universities. Vice Chancellor.
Associate Vice Chancellor
Yeah.
Minskew, your assistant.
Thank you.
And then Department of Human Rights, she was Commissioner. That's a tough job and one that's hard to get. She was appointed under Arnie Carlson, our governor at the time. Also in that department, she was the Deputy Commissioner and she was the Director. She had all the top level jobs and she deserved to be the Commissioner. She also was a Director of Consumer Relations in her past, and now she functions as an independent consultant. And she does this for private sector, nonprofits, business, and she's highly successful, you guys. I am truly honored to have a woman of this stature. I've known her a long time and she knows me better. In our family we had boys. My mother was one of the first African American teachers hired by the Minneapolis School District, and had my mother and father had a daughter, she would have been my sister. So, now moving along. Al Flowers, the mayor.
There you go.
Al Flowers is a dear friend, you guys, and he's self-made. You know, he has come up from the bootstraps. He has risen to stature in education, in civics, in community, and as well as the circuit on the colleges. Al Flowers has developed programs that are helpful and beneficial to us. Al Flowers has given his time, and he had a contract with the Minneapolis School District. He did his level best to try and make it better for us. I mean, in the previous session, you heard about the gap and all this noise. Well, Al Flowers was part of that, and he tried to make it better for us. Now, he ran into some obstacles beyond his doing, but the fact that he tried. A few years ago, Al ran for mayor. Everybody thought Al was nuts. And I scratched my bald head and thought he was nuts too. But in reality, Al ran a nice campaign. And everybody underestimated his intelligence. They saw a big, tall, black man. What they didn't see was a big, tall, black man that was very intelligent. Al finished third. People didn't give him a chance. I am so proud to call Al Flowers my friend. Just makes me smile. Welcome, Al.
Thank you.
Spike Moss. I don't know if he needs an introduction. Spike is, in reality, probably the most successful of all of our family. And we have a fairly large family. Spike hailed from the same town that I did, a small little community, and has reached heights that most of us will never get to. I shouldn't say never. You young bucks will probably do better. But he got there first. Spike has challenged the system. He's made it better for all of us, from Fagan, Dr. Fagan, Obie, Kiper, everybody else. Because my dad once said, you gotta understand, it takes somebody like Spike to pave the way and open the doors. Okay? Spike Moss has been doing this since he was a kid, and he's doing it today. He's been involved in education. He's met some of the strongest people nationally. Through him, I've had the chance to sit down with Jesse Jackson. Through him, I've had the chance to sit down with the dude that slicks his hair back. The Jim Brown. Jim's still a big man. And the brother that Sharpton. You know, I ain't never seen Sharpton without his hair pressed. But anyway, I met these people through Spike, and Spike travels nationally and does what he can do, and is sought out with regard to education, civil rights, business, making sure that we have equal access, equal opportunity, fair share. I remember back in the day, Spike was running around talking about fair share, and we all wearing our black jacket. I still got mine. We had a hat and a black jacket with a little African thing that said fair share on it. That was led by Spike. It was very important. I remember when Spike Construction, you know, they don't hire too many of us. Spike and the Reverend Jerry McAfee sitting on top of bulldozers. Wouldn't let the white boys in the job because there wasn't any blacks in there. Now that took some nerve, you guys. So Spike is a truly special man. I'm extremely proud to be related to him, and I just can't say enough. Thank you for everything that you do. That being said, the first topic we're going to talk about is education, because we're following the gap. Now, in education, especially in Minneapolis, one of the problems is, particularly with the black males, I'm not picking on you guys, because you all are doing what you need to do, but most black brothers are not graduating from high school. 47% is the graduation rate. The only ethnic group lower than us is the American Indian. They're about 29%. There's something wrong. You heard about the gap. You heard about initiatives that the Minneapolis schools are trying to do. You heard tremendous information from the school board members who are trying to make it better. But I will submit to you, if we do not get an education, if we do not graduate, you're assured of a couple things. Jail's the first one. The second one is this: you're going to be poor. You're going to be poor the rest of your lives. Now, looks around. All you guys are dressed nice and look good, and it takes money to put those clothes on your back. So you have to get an education. In the Minneapolis district, there's a lot of schools. There's 7 high schools. I just learned this. The highest graduation rate from Minneapolis Henry. I almost fell off my chair. 87% Minneapolis Henry. I thought it'd be Minneapolis Southwest. It was Minneapolis Henry. I'm not going to get into what the lowest graduation rate is because it's not important. All the schools made progress as far as graduation. The other statistic I will give you, the black male is 10 times more likely to get suspended in the Minneapolis public schools compared to any and all students. As far as the dropout rate, there were 450 dropouts last year, 452 to be exact. 225 of those were African American men, boys. Something's wrong, y'all. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up to Fridge. She's a renowned educator. And we're going to talk about education and what things we may be able to do, all of us, to make it better. Before I finish, Dr. Fagan's probably made the most impact of any African American in any college at Minsky. He's legendary. He was down there when I was down there. Still looks good for a young man. Doc is, living and teaching in Mankato's hard, you guys. When I first went down there, they asked me, well, hey boy, what country you from? I looked at the white boy and said, Czechoslovakia. Where are you from? You know, I'm going to tell you what I think. You know, ask me some stupid question like that. But anyway, Fagan was down there, and he set the example for the rest of us. And it's a tremendous example. Don't let Doc fool you. He walks around like he ain't got nothing. He's poor. He's lying, y'all. He's done well. That's what an education does for you. He's a good example for all of us in this room. Thank you for letting me be part of your conference. I'm humbly honored. Love you, brother. All right, Dolores, I'm sitting down.
Thank you.
I'm tired now.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
I'm thrilled to be here. I used to be on and off the Mintu campuses for 7 years because I was an associate vice chancellor for equal opportunity and diversity under both Chancellor James McCormick, who I helped hire. By the way, the only African-American person on the 32 panel of hiring for the chancellor. Had I not been put on that panel, there would have been no African-Americans on the panel to hire him. And prior to that, Maury Anderson, who appointed me following a 7-year term with Governor Arlene Carlson at the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, and a whole lot of stuff before then. But I want to get back to this education thing, which is very distressful. I started out life in a little country, very racist West Virginia town where, as a black family, my mom, my dad, our relatives all lived. We lived in what was called the Hollow. The white people lived in the town, and the hillbillies, as they called themselves, as we did, lived on the side of the mountains. But my parents moved to Cleveland, Ohio when I was 5, still in the midst of all the segregation. And my dad had cash, a college degree. My mother had a college degree from black colleges. He couldn't get a job, and when he finally got the job and saved money to buy a house, no bank at all in the city of Cleveland would give him. He had $5,000 in 1952 and an engineering job in a white man's factory that was 10 miles away from home by bus. And the only people that gave him a loan with all of that back then was a Jewish bank, but the condition was we had to live in their community. So you're looking at an African American woman who started out in the valley in West Virginia, total segregation. By 6 was living in a completely Jewish neighborhood. So I knew everything about the Yiddish, the songs, the teachers were all Jewish, so I could do old dreidel, dreidel, dreidel as well as I could decide. So my parents' choices of leaving the segregation of the South before there were any laws to protect them laid a groundwork for me that I've simply followed. And as a result of that, when I applied to college, I applied to Winona State Teachers College. My best friend and I applied to go to college there. Why did we apply? Because we sent to about 15 teachers' colleges all over the Midwest, and on the front of their brochure, and I will tell this because I'm fine about my age, but on the front of their brochure, in 1962, was an African-American male by the name of Marvin Ross. And if any of you are from St. Paul or familiar with him, Marvin is still around. He's retired. He runs a baseball club over in St. Paul. Marvin Ross. So my friend LaRue, we looked at each other and said, one for you, there's got to be one for you, and we went. Well, by the time we got there in the fall, he was gone. It was just she and I. Long story short, she hated it. She dropped out of most of her classes, and I went back because my parents had taught me something that later I did a workshop on for students called resilience. I had a goal in mind. My goal was to get a degree and teach school. I was not going to go backwards by leaving it and looking for anything for entertainment or boyfriends, any of that kind of stuff. I wanted 4 years and out. I got my 4 years, I got out, I had a 3.8, and I was the first full-time African-American female to be hired at Bancroft Elementary School in South Minneapolis, which is where a few years later, his mom came to teach. She was already teaching at a Minneapolis public school. So I did that, and my cue for life is this, for you all. Your life is gonna end up being what you make it. You can blame mothers and fathers and uncles and sisters and neighbors and cousins and teachers and neighborhoods and, oh, ain't it awful? You will be what you determine to be. A very dear friend of mine, and you may not know him, some of you may, Dr. Howard Fuller. He was the executive director of an organization called Black Alliance for Education Options. It still exists, but I met him at Federal National Education Conference, and he asked me to come on board with him, and he and I and a bunch of other folks from across the country started this organization back in the 90s. And he always said this, if you follow the road that someone else built, you can only go where he or she wants to go. If you build your own road, you can go where you are supposed to go. Howard Fuller, 1999. So coming out of education, I expected, my parents were education, so I expected to be there. I was 14 years into education. Somebody called me up and said, hey, Fridge, do you want to go down to this Affirmative Action Fair? I didn't know what Affirmative Action was. It was the year the law was passed. I said, sure. We went down. We ended up getting hired. I resigned from my teaching job, and believe me, everybody in my family and all my friends thought I was nuts because I would never retire, blah, 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 blah. I quit, and I started my first out of teaching position, and for 15 years, I was in and ran what's called consumer affairs departments. They don't exist unless you look on the side of your toilet paper or something. You'll see this number that says consumer affairs, 1-800. Well, those are the people you call and complain to. But back in those days, they each had their own entity separate from the toilet paper. They had consumer affairs departments. I was trained there, I worked there, I managed that, and I ended up doing that for 15 years in 3 different organizations until I became a director of consumer affairs for a manufacturing facility. The importance of manufacturing facility was this. I learned how a designer takes a design, sends it to someone else, they put the pieces together, make the pieces, they put the pieces together, they take the pieces and they make it into an item and they shipped it all over the world. My 55-person staff and I had to chase all the problems and issues that came up in that process. A lot of us, as African Americans, haven't a clue what a position like that is. And let me tell you, if you ever get an opportunity to work in any kind of manufacturing production facility where you have hands on the process, not the production, the process, that's called operations. And if you have a foundation in operations for a business, you can go any place. I went from teaching 2nd through 6th grade to consumer affairs, which was fine because I learned federal state laws. But the key was 15 years in these little bitty manufacturing facilities to understand what happens from the time the scientists invent it goes down and gets passed, it gets built over here, it gets shipped here, the shipping any place. We had a bunch of computers we shipped to the middle of the Sahara Desert and they didn't get there. So that comes back to me and I have to trace them down and find them. This was like 25 years ago. Listen for the operations pieces. I don't know what they teach in college for it, but that is a key to having a long, successful, multifaceted, because I didn't know a lot of people and I certainly didn't have a lot of support systems. So from there, I went to human rights, 3 or 4 jobs there. The first one was operations. Ended up being appointed by Arnie Carlson as the Commissioner of Human Rights. Did a lot of work around the state. And during that process, he was pushing, one of the first persons to push a bill around education. So I became his national voice for education for students of color. So I've been to the mountaintop and seen over. I've been every place from Vermont in the woods to talk about why we need equity in schools, to Indian reservations in Colorado, to Florida in the swamp, to talk about equity in education and why. And at this point in my life, what hurts me most is to see how little my people have benefited. The laws were there, the statutes were there, the education possibilities were there, and I am totally miffed how we sit as adults and the generation behind me and watch the chaos that's happening to our children. We have to take back our responsibility. We cannot put this on anybody else, and this is one thing Dr. Howard Fuller was very clear on when he would go around the country speaking and teaching people what to do. We have to take back our responsibility because nobody else is going to do it. Otherwise, we're going to be the open door for prisons for our males and endless jobs that don't make money to feed a family for our females. We have been here too long to watch other groups come here in less than 50 years. Less than 50 years. I was a school teacher when the Hmong first showed up. My neighbors were Hmong, nobody spoke English but the dad. They all ended up with college degrees. One of the little boys was in my 6th grade class at Bancroft. They all ended up with college degrees. And I'm scratching my head, what's the problem here? What is the problem? Besides that we're a disparate community, we also spend too much time at pointing to each other and talking about our own internal differences. Forget the differences, get an education, encourage other people to do that, and make sure that you do that in such a way that people are not offended. So I'll stop there because I've got my short resume is 10 pages. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
We'll hold questions till we get through what we're going to do here. Piggybacking on what you said, education allowed me to have my own business. It's legal. And without that education, I couldn't do what I did. All my degrees, I've used all of them. From parks and recreation, to counseling, to coaching, and now to law. So, education works, you guys. I'm living proof. I didn't come down here as an A student. My boy, and I tease him, he got a 30 on the ACT. He's a junior, just got the 30. First time, and forgot his calculator, and still got the 30. He said, Dad, when you was my age, what'd you get? I said, I got 32, boy. He said, what? I said, well, the first time I got 16, and then the second time I got 16. So that's so when you look at a guy and they talk about, can you get through school and you don't test well, I'm living proof. And I will tell you that I own my own business. I get to call my own shots. I don't have anybody tell me what to do. And I don't owe anybody a dime, not one penny. Nobody owns me. That being said, Al, you got 3 to 5, homeboy.
First, it's a pleasure to be here. And I want to start off by saying thank you. We should get Dr. Michael Fagan, who's in the back there, who brought this here. I'm going to say why. I'm not going to try to match this resume. I mean, he done
You
put,
can mess it?
Yeah, no, I can't match it. And you got this big resume over here, and you got, when he talked about Spike, this is our civil rights leader.
Yep.
And the state of Minnesota, I've grown up, I learned everything I did under his mentorship. I learned the right things to do. I done had other mentors that took me and tell me to go this way, and I'm a bulldog, and I don't have this resume, but if you Google me, if you Google Al Plow, you'll say, whoa, hold on, because Al Plow has been beat up, he's been beat up by police, everything that could be done to a black man, I had it done, but I knew how to get by just dealing with people like Spike who tell me how. And I'm going to use mine about love. I'm going to talk about you, because y'all young people, and about love. And Obie talked about some stuff I did with Community Standard Initiative called CSI. Still got it going on. And it ran into trouble. But it was about values, community value conversation. I do a radio show on KMOJ every Sunday from 1 to 2. I do TV, MTN. I come on public TV every Sunday from 6 to 7. So mine is communicating. And what happened with CSI, it was about us. It was us saying, me going out to the community and saying, how do we lift our values up? Us, not anybody else, because nobody's going to take care of the African American. When we speak, if I speak and I talk about minorities, I talk about the Latino, the Native American, Hmong, any minority community, but I talk about us a lot because nobody speaks up for you. They don't speak up for you. If people like Spike Moss don't speak up and say what's going on wrong, it's not going to be said. It's not going to be said. So what I'm trying to say is to put some love with each other. Y'all are here going to college. How many? Everybody in college in here? Put your hand up if you're in college. Yeah, this is our people. This is what we need on the radio to talk to people, say why it's important. You know, we got a lot that what Obie talked about. We got only 40-some% graduate. So what do that mean? We got 50-some that's not even in the picture. Y'all in the picture. Y'all our future. Y'all our leaders. And they can play this game with people of color, particularly African Americans. But in the year 2020, 2030, the minority is going to take over. It's going to be browner. The world going to be browner. We are going to be on top. We're going to be the ones that have to move this country forward. But where are African Americans going to be? Because you know where's our ethics? Where are African Americans going to be? That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about y'all taking this education and then going back and telling somebody younger, telling your little cousin, your little nephew. People want to say baby and all these other names. You better tell baby and them if they want a piece of this American dream, they better get back in school. They better be educated, or you're going to get left behind as a community. I'm real concerned about the African American. What we gonna do? Whether we black, we done been named so many things. We're the only one that's been named everything. We just went from N to the N word to Negro to African American to black. What are we? We're a people. And Spike would say the first human. That's what I ain't taking this speech, but I'm trying to get mine in before he talks. I'm trying to get it in because he will tell you how powerful you really are. But we tend to hold each other. We tend to bring somebody out. The ones that's not graduate is going to attack the ones that are, and we got to do something about that. We got to say no. We got to stand up for the ones that's in school. And you got to tell the ones that's not in school they got to do it. They have to have this education, and that's what my fight. I want to continue my fight for is the fight about how do we make it happen for each other, and that's why I'm so proud of Dr. Fagan. He brought this Pan-African conference here. I don't know how it's gonna go the whole weekend, how it's gonna go, but he brought it down here to us where people can really access it really good. Now, we got more work to do to make it even more powerful, but that comes from you. That comes from you, and that's why I'm so glad and proud to be sitting here. I ran all the way from downtown to get out, to get over here, not just to pick up the check. I got a little check. But I check. Yeah, I got. He didn't tell you. But I came. He back there. I was coming here. I would have came here for nothing because my love for y'all and I say using the radio, the TV show. When you want to do something that's going to uplift us in the African American community, you can get in touch with me at KMOJ, the Urban League. Anybody will give you my number. I want to push you. I want to push our community, and I know we're going to be successful. I know God has our back. We did nothing. We went through the 400 years of slavery. We did all that, but President Obama is the president, but he's the president, and they still treat him. They nothing as President Obama has been president over 6 years. No president in this country has ever been treated like this man, and he keep on doing stuff. He keep on pushing immigration. He keep on pushing for you to have health care. He keep on pushing education. But they treat him, you think I got beat up by the police? It ain't nothing compared to what they're doing to him for trying to do right by us. So I want y'all to know, y'all are the power. Y'all are the power. Y'all are the ones going to make the Pan-African Conference go on even after you graduate college. Yeah, that's why Dr. Michael Fagan for bringing it here, for doing this 39 years. 39 years this man has been doing this. And now I'm saying to y'all have to lift it up, and we have to support y'all when y'all lift it up. And that's what I'll say, even between this educator and this big guy right here. But he's the man that he never stops fighting for us, and that's why I love him. He never stopped. Not one day have he ever stopped. He got kicked off the radio because of me, because he would let me talk about what they were doing to our people. And the same radio station I'm on now, removed him for having me on it. Then they told him I couldn't come to the studio He told me call in. He told me call in then and let me continue to do what I do. So I leave it to him. I nothing but love for y'all, but y'all are the one that's gonna make this Pan-African be a part of the planning of what we're gonna do next year. And I'm just glad to be here.
Al touched on a pretty interesting statistic. In the year 2020, we're no longer going to be the minority. Now, you know, I have a kind of a question. Are they going to call the Europeans the minority? Because we're going to be the majority. I'm curious about that. Now, I submit to you, I don't think they'll do it. We'll take questions when we're done. I question that. I'm not sure. Then they talked about President Obama. You know, in my household, I'm wrong all the time. But Obama, according to the Republicans, got me beat. He's wrong 100% of the time. How can that be? That's impossible. This man has had 6 years in there fighting for all of us. He fought for health care. Well, we're the richest country in the world. Why shouldn't all of the families, rich, poor, and everything in between, not have health care? Now, I'll tell you a story. I got hit by a car coming out of Menards many years ago. And if it weren't for Obamacare, I couldn't get insurance, guys. You know, I couldn't do it because I've had to have so many surgeries. I was a pedestrian, went through a windshield. Everything got banged up my brain. God was good to me. He said, yeah, you got hurt, but we didn't hurt the one thing you needed, your brain. He also knew I didn't have any room for getting hit. You know, in other words, I couldn't lose any IQ points. Okay? Couldn't do it. He realized that. And to this day, I thank him. So, my point being is that you're going to hit roadblocks. What you're going to see with Obama and his administration is the pen. The pen for what? Vetoes. Because I'm going to tell you something. And I apologize in advance if I offend any Republicans in here. But Republicans don't include you all.
That's right.
We're not included.
That's right.
They don't care about minority. The only reason they care about women is because most of them are married to white women. That's the only reason. You understand? They don't care about you guys. When you see the convention and they show you the big screen and they see your pictures, count on one hand how many look like me. And they paid those guys. You see what I'm saying? So you're not included. So that's, Al is right. Education is critical. We're on the tail end of it, guys. You guys are coming up. You know, it's much like when I played football. Your senior year, you know it's coming to an end. Okay? But here come you young bucks. You know, you're carrying the mantle. It's the same thing in life. It's just evolution. So that's why it's so critical that all of you get your education. So someday when I'm sitting back there like Dr. Fagan, you know, probably with a walker and probably some false teeth then, you all will be up here pontificating and being you all the college grads. I know you know what that means. So that being said, I thought Al touched on some very important items that he talked about in his presentation. Next is Spike.
Wow. I'm sitting here extremely impressed. Let me open up by saying that when I look at Brother Dalton in the back and Dr. Fagan, Sister Fred, Brother Obie, Tamron, Brother Bell there, these adults in this room right now represent the reward of our struggle. It might look like they went off and got a degree or got education, but it's deeper than that. They represent the reward because our people didn't suffer for nothing when you see them. And I'm going to start with that because y'all owe a heck of a debt, larger than you can imagine. And what Doc is doing is trying to continue to pay on that debt. When we left the land of Ethiopia later named after the Greek Tyrus Afri, and became Africa. We left under the name of African people no matter where we hail from, and no matter what part of Africa we hail from. Whether we live in the islands down there, or we live here on the shores of America or South America. We're all African people. Puerto Rico and Cuba. Doesn't matter where you go. When you see this, when you see this, you see this hair, you're looking at the brothers and sisters from Ethiopia, today called Africa. Why do I bring that up? I bring it up because of the price. I look at this book, and I kept looking at it, and I said, it's interesting. Here's Doc in the middle, and in the corner is Brother Frederick Douglass. And you know, the truth is, Doc's standing on his shoulders. The truth is, he's standing on his shoulders, still carrying on what Frederick would want us to do for ourselves and for our people. Now, that's what's important about it. Let's take Doc and this fridge here. If you go back, before any of us in this room got here, and even had a thought about learning something, you'd be beat senseless. If you were found to have a book in your hand, you might lose that hand. But if I caught you looking into that book, I might put your eyes out. And God forbid, I'd have caught Doc or Miss Fridge saying the words out of the book. I'd silence them so they can never teach the rest of you what they know. And it didn't matter. This happened to thousands of us across this country for generations as we struggled to try to read the words that was in the book. And when we came up through it, then he decided you couldn't go to school. You weren't worthy of going to school. You weren't human enough to go to school, and you wouldn't be allowed to go to school. And when we finally won the battle to go to school and get an education, they started the next battle. The next battle was you couldn't go to public school. Even though your parents paid taxes, you weren't allowed, and you weren't allowed to have the materials and the books that they had over there in the public school. And when we graduated, we had dreams and goals to be Miss Fridge and Doc and Dalton. We wanted to go to college and get a degree. And lo and behold, they started another battle. Can't no blacks go to colleges in America. But we had enough love for ourselves and enough love for our own future, for our own children, that them little sharecroppers that made 5 cents and 15 cents a day in the field back then. Y'all can't imagine what it is to make a nickel in one full day's work, working from sun up to sundown, but that's what they made. Those people that looked like us made that and delivered up the nickels and the pennies to build all the schools and colleges that we had throughout the South that we shamed of today. So that we would have a day where you would be here ready to be heard and bring something forward, rather to be Doc, and bring something forward that our people could use to build what? A great future. What's important about what Al says as the world changes, it's becoming a very economic country and it's becoming a very technology country. And if you don't have a degree and you ain't the head of the class, you might be flipping burgers.
Don't burn them.
Now here's the deal on that. We're the only people living in America that yet to have our own community. Have you ever thought about it?
All the time.
All across this country, all you live in is neighborhoods. See, the closest community to me is Robbinsdale. And I know it's Robbinsdale because the police cars say Robbinsdale. Fire trucks say Robbinsdale. The schools say Robbinsdale.
Talk about it.
Beyond there is Brooklyn Center. I know it's Brooklyn Center because the police cars say Brooklyn Center. But when you get in North Minneapolis, ain't nothing saying nothing because you ain't got nothing. And you ain't built nothing. And you don't seem to want nothing. So therefore you don't have nothing. And you believe you got something when you get your hands on a Cadillac or a Benz.
Speak. Tell the truth.
Your dream has to be bigger than that. Your goals have to be bigger than that. Because you have to build the first black real society in this country. We came close in the early 30s and early 20s in Tulsa, Oklahoma when they built Black Wall Street. But we have not replaced it as a people.
They destroyed it.
That's right. Teach, brother.
As a people. Here's the second deal. 1965, after Fannie Lou Hamer fought the great battle for our right to vote.
Thank you.
We won the right to vote under civil rights law, but not Constitution and not Bill of Rights.
Yes, sir.
That vote's coming up again.
Yes, sir.
You with your knowledge coming out of college, some of you will go into politics, some of you will go into law. It's time for you to challenge Washington, D.C. and see that your people are under the Bill of Rights and the Constitution like everybody else. So we have to stop worrying about people voting for us to do this and voting for us to do that. We need to be citizens recognized of this country.
Speak up. Speak up. Thank you.
No longer 3/5 human and chattel property. You need to take care of that in your generation. We would have never got dogged the way we did in Ferguson had we been under human rights.
Right on.
And
Speak
the
up.
first thing they did is make it clear. We'll see if his civil rights is violated.
Yes, sir. That's right.
If I tear up this table and don't want to pay for it, they get to take me to civil court, because civil court takes care of property. And
Thank
we're
you.
in the category of chattel property.
Right on. Speak up. Speak up.
I want to be out of that category. So I need y'all to wake up and go to school and get me out of that category.
Speak up.
Because if you don't get me out of that category, I swear, doctor, next year, Spike Mouse going to declare itself an American Eagle. So I ain't have to worry about white folks whooping me like they did Al. You can't touch me, it's illegal.
Yeah.
Declare me American Eagle. Declare me American Eagle so you'll never be able to deny me access to where I want to sit down and eat or where I want to live. Declare me an American Eagle so I can make my own decision about my own freedom. I'd rather be a bald-headed American Eagle than be and live the way we've been forced to live in this country. So in closing, I'm just saying to you, keep your eyes on the prize. Freedom, justice, equality. Say that. Keep your eye on the prize. Freedom, justice, equality.
Equality.
Speak up.
Spike gave you guys a nice history lesson here, and we'll get to questions when we get toward the end. And I think it's important that you all listen to that, because, see, as you guys become the majority, in theory, I hope that you become the leaders. And leaders do what?
Lead.
Thank you. No longer shall we what?
Oh.
So, that's the importance of education. See, when we all came up, we didn't have the opportunities that you all have. Brother Bell, my parents, and his parents go back forever. You know, he went to college, got his degrees, one of the best social workers in the state, sitting right there. The reality of it is, but without that education, he wouldn't have had that job. There's no way. And we come in colors of different hue, you understand? You know, when I was in Missouri, my grandmother was light. And my dad's siblings were all different kind of colors. When that little redneck town called Paris, Missouri, they said, well, Betty, who's been in the shed with you? And Betty hadn't been in no shed, but with my grandpappy, who was black as I am. But because we came in different hues, there had to be something wrong. You understand? So when people see you, all of you, judgments are already made. Now I'm choked up, so they might think I have a nickel. You know, I could be the poorest one on the street. Okay? You come dressed in your jeans and your hoodie, well, you got to be a hood rat. I'm going to tell you something. I got about 15 hoodies, and I love them. Okay? And I wear them proudly. Okay? So my point being, I really don't give a hoot and a holler what people think about me. What I do care about is, when it comes time for me to take care of business, they're gonna respect me. Why? Because you got the education. Why? Because most of you are matriculating through a European school, just like I did. Okay? So the whole thing about education, at the end of the day, is becoming independent, becoming economically free, raising your families. Eventually, most of you get married, you'll have your kids, etc. You want to be proud and be in a position to put them in the position you're in right now, going to colleges. One of the things Minneapolis School is doing is that they're a preparatory school for students going to college. What I learned from the school board members, and one is here, hi Cam, Is there?
Two is here.
Oh, hi Rebecca. I apologize. I didn't see you, dear. Well, I talked to Rebecca yesterday, and she schooled me. You know, and I'm getting old now, so I listen better. And what she told me is that, you know, although the school district's geared for this 4-year, 5-year thing, we're not geared too well for the post-high school training in other areas, such as vocational. Now, we need mechanics, we need plumbers, we need these types of skill sets to be functional and take care of business. For the first time, they're projecting that the vocational grad will make more money over his lifetime than the 4-year college liberal arts grad. Okay? Now, that's because when you go to college, you major in obscure things. I get a kick out of the University of Minnesota. They get an athlete over there, say Obie Kiper. Obie Kiper just barely gets in the place, but I can really play sports. So the next thing I get in there for is, well, you know, you just barely got in here, but we know you're good and we want to keep you eligible. So your major's going to be sports management. I scratch my bald head and say, what the hell is sports management? You know, it's nothing more than eligibility. Why? Because the coach has got an incentive that if the team gets a 3-0, he gets another $200,000. You know, the point being, they don't care about. They don't care.
Can we get
Hang
a
on.
question?
No, we're going to take questions later. They don't care about the end result. You know, what they do care about is you have to get the education. Guys, ladies, we'll take questions. But we got to get through a couple hot button topics. Then I'll open this thing up and ask all the questions you want. You ask those 3, because I don't know too much. So you ask those 3. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is political. See, because that's a hot button. Politics is very critical, and it will play in all of your lives in some form, whether you want to admit it or not. Politics. Example, Dolores Fridge, qualified best candidate for those top level jobs. But make no mistakes, politics were involved. Arnie Carlson wanted her. He said, I can work with this lady. I respect her intelligence. I respect her talent. Now, I might have come in and been better qualified, but he might say, you know, he's a jerk. I can't work with him. He's not a team player. That's politics. Al Flowers. Somebody meet Al Flowers back in the day, man, you say, who the heaven is he? You know? But in reality, he's one of the most intellectual, gifted human beings you'll ever meet. And most people have an opinion on Spike. A lot of it's misguided. You know, in other words, don't judge the book by the cover. Try and read it and judge it by its content. That's my message to you all. So in the political arena, and I'll let them all touch on that, you all have to be active. That's where I'm going with that subject. You cannot sit on the sidelines. Because, see, that shapes not only our country, but it impacts your futures. You see what I'm saying? When they go in there and vote and say, we don't want Obama health care, who do you think that impacts? Okay, when they go in there and vote and say, we want to put tighter restrictions on financial aid recipients, who do you think that impacts? When they go in there and say, affirmative action doesn't mean a thing, who do you think it impacts? Those are politics. That's legislation. It impacts everybody in this room. So all I'm trying to do is make you think. And I'll let everybody touch on that. You each got 5 minutes. Dolores, you're first.
Thank you. In the political arena, when I left teaching and quit my job without a job, it was the first year that affirmative action had passed at the federal level, so that corporations and businesses had to hire women. No matter what color you were, that was one time it was reconvenient just be a female. Because everything in this country was pretty much owned, run, and at the hierarchy by men. So I was hired in a position commensurate with my background in education. I interviewed, and there was an African-American male who was the head of human resources at Prudential when they were really a filthy rich company. They had the headquarters outside the Twin Cities in the northern suburbs. And he hired me because of my teaching. Because I could read and write and pay attention and think, and I'm not kidding you. Read, write, pay attention, think, and I was a well-oriented person. And I'll give you an example of how stupid it sounded to me. I got in the Consumer Affairs unit, so I wrote letters. When if you complained, it came to me. I wrote the letter and came back and sent it back to you. Well, there was 35 of us in the department, and we had 2 computers in the hallway, like the hallway between 2 departments, really wide, and there were 2 computers. Well, we had our own computers in those days. They were like archaic. You would laugh if you saw anything like this. They were really sort of like data entry, and you had to wait. So the answers came back on these 2 computers. So all of us have computers, and we're putting our information in, you know, Dolores' fridge, what's the cost of her policy, or what's her policy worth. Then I have to take a pen and paper and go out to the hallway in the same division and wait for one of the other 35 people along with me, 2 computers, get this, to get done so I could answer the question. I was there about, I'm not exaggerating. Now here I had taught 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade and Title I reading teacher. I went out in the hallway and I looked at that, and about a month into being there, I went into Dave Gill, who had hired me. He was the boss of Consumer Affairs. And I said, can't you all afford a computer? Oh yeah. I said, why do you have 35 people waiting in line and spending their customers' time? So you had to take the name and the phone number of the customer, because you couldn't put them on hold. You know, these are old heavy phones. You just back and forth. Wow. There was no buttons, there was nothing. Then you had to call them back and keep calling till you got them. So that was my first suggestion, and he looked at me like I was this light bulb from somewhere else. I'm thinking to myself, school teachers are really smart people. The next thing I knew, they came and asked me would I head up with this little committee to determine. Because not only did that happen, well, he just put in for computers plus Prudential Bottom. We had like the Suave of Consumer Affairs. And because I did this, he recommended that I become part of the Society for Consumer Affairs Professionals. They were all the large businesses in the country, and they had a group. So he put me in that group. So twice a year I went to conferences. I learned from other large businesses. We shared information. You name a company in this country that's been around 50 years or longer, and they have representatives like me. It gave me exposure to different places, different cultures, different people, and what it was like to share and give and take. This is all a school teacher modality, even though they didn't see it as that. So then the next thing, they closed 4 or 5 offices across the country, and they sent 3 offices of people after they fired folks, of course, here. And a lot of that influx came from Gary, Indiana, and Chicago, because they closed those 2 offices. So they closed the offices, and they were running around talking about how we going to get all these people trained. I said, you know what, hey, I just got through being trained. For the entire 6 months of training, guess what school teachers do? Here's the question, there's somebody's answer. I wrote the book. So when it came time, they said, oh my goodness, look what Fridge did. She had a training in it. Well, duh, that's what school teachers do. So they took me, they increased my salary, they set me aside, they built an entire little separate unit, and they hired people 10, 15 at a time. They couldn't wait around hiring one person every 5 years like they had done with me, because they had thousands and thousands of more insurance policies and questions we answered coming in. I got a $500 bonus, which was huge in that time, and a trip out to their world headquarters in New Jersey to tell other consumer affairs leaders and other CEOs, senior vice president of Prudential, what to do. Thinking outside the box, not sticking with one thing, not sitting around and pontificating with the same people. And because I was the first African American person, a woman to graduate from Winona, I went through a whole lot of stuff. I was walking down the street one day going to the store, and this little white girl came out of her house on her bike, and she said, Mommy, come look, there's a nigger going down the street. And I did not flinch. I kept walking, because I was the only person of color in that entire area, and because I ventured off campus by myself to go 5 minutes to downtown, that's what happened. But guess what? Mommy never came to the door. She was smart. Mommy never came to the door, but the little girl screamed until I was out of sight. My second year, one of my friends was graduating, and so we all went, because we could drink beer back then at 18, so we all went down to the pizza place where we went all the time.
You guys don't know
right
anything
around
about
campus.
that.
Right around campus. And so we went, and there's 4 or 5 of us sitting there, and we were talking and stuff, and this Italian who came from New York walked in, sat down with a bunch of his buddies, turned around, took a look at me and said, spit in my face, in the pizza parlor, and went on and looked at me and said, I did not come all the way from New Jersey to go to college with a nigger. And the white girls flocked around me, and we left. That was repeated over the 4 years. But I had this really sharp cousin who's still living, and she said to me when I went back after the first year, I wasn't going to go back because my friend Guru wasn't going back, and I'd be the only black female on campus, which I was. And she said to me, there is education in them, their hills. Don't you let ignorant people keep you from getting it. I don't care if it's family, friends, neighbors, whatever. She said, you get that piece of paper in 4 years and you can write your ticket. I took my butt right on back down to Winona State Teachers College. I got my 4-year degree in 4 years and I never looked back. Resilience is the other key for your generation. Write down the word resilience. Resilience is what you have got to become. Look it up. You can find it on the computer. You don't need a dictionary. Look it up. Print a copy of it and take it with you wherever you go. This world is not going to be kind to you because we have too many other people in this country from other countries who are taking the advantages that we do not take, that we don't teach our children how to take, that we don't help each other how to take. We don't share information. We sit around and we click around, and then we get this group is better than that group, that group. Look. I was here when the Hmong first showed up from off the waters. Very seriously. I had a family of 5 moving next to my husband and I in an apartment, 2 adults, 2 parents. The religious folks brought them in. There were 5 kids and their husband and wife. Wife didn't speak English. The husband had been a professor over there. They had 5 kids. Those kids played with my kids and we went back and forth. She taught me some things and I taught her some things. She made clothes strictly by looking at you, getting some fabric, cutting out, and putting it together. I could sew because my mother was a homemade teacher, so she taught me how to sew. She taught us how to cook certain kind of foods. I took her to the fabric store because they didn't have a clue what she was trying to tell them. Her husband would make different kind of foods, so I am proud to say that at one point he came over with duck eggs, boiled, and it's a treat. So you crack the duck egg, and my husband will tell you, you open it up, and there's the baby duck, and you eat the whole thing with the milk. But that's cultural competency because I would not have ever offended them and said, I don't know, I don't like it, and I never ate it again. And we had a lot of beer after we ate them. But that's what learning is. Don't sit amongst your own and sit amongst yourself and rail on and ain't it awful. I am so tired. I am so old and so black and so tired of hearing the railing about ain't it awful. Get off your butt and do something about it. One person at a time. I don't care if you just take one person and read, one person to a constructive movie, one person to a shelter, one person, somebody get up here at the State House. We have legislature runs all season. I was up there with a friend a couple weeks ago, and we're never there. I'm sitting here, here's the Department of Human Services, and these organizations all over the state. There's not anybody on their group at the legislature. They're begging for hundreds of thousands and some millions of dollars, and we're nowhere to be found. The Department of Human Services having their budget hearing, and every face that got up there, none of them looked like us. There was a Latino representative from one of their organizations, American Indian woman from theirs, and an Asian woman from theirs. There was not a face, Human Services, that looked like or belonged to our committee at that hearing where they were finalizing the budget. Are you going to get 2.3 million? You're going to want 1.4 million? We're giving you 300,000. We're giving you 250,000. None of us. And then we want to get mad at the others because we see them progressing. But you can't sit on your butt. I lived for 7 years at Human Rights and at Minshew. I lived at the Capitol doing sessions. I remember getting up on Mother's Day, having to go to session on a Mother's Day, and that's when I smoked, and my peer and I sat up on the Capitol steps at 7 a.m. in the morning, smoking a cigarette, mad because we couldn't be home with our family on Mother's Day. But the hearing had to be heard about human rights. Is my time up?
You're dang right.
Okay.
I'm glad you quit that crap too, that smoking. Now, we're gonna get through these two. I was gonna talk about drug and alcohol, but we're gonna open it up for some questions because we only got till 3:30. So we'll get through, we'll get through Al and Spike, and then we'll open it up for questions, okay? So Al, 5 minutes.
I'm not going to take 5 minutes, and that's usually not like me, but since Obie and his good, our good human rights commissioner, that I mean, they said everything. They're saying everything. What Spike said, it was everything that need to be said, and I'm gonna continue to push that love part. And then earlier I was talking about our black media. Y'all got a panel coming up. I was just looking in the book, and I was talking about KMOJ earlier, and now the director and the program manager over at KMOJ is on the next panel, and Al McFarland is here at Inside News.
Yep.
Our black news, that's how we get our information out. So it's some stuff coming up to you that is more important than just to be sitting up here saying something that's already been said. And I'm gonna go back to what I said originally. Y'all are the important ones. You need to know about, if you don't know about KMOJ, you need to. If you don't know about Insight News, our black newspaper, which I've seen over the course of what we were talking about earlier, saying things happen with Community Standard Initiative. When we talked about that, if it wasn't for the black news, our story wouldn't have got out. It would have been a false story put out. And so so that's what when this next panel, I'm leaving it. You got a black media. You got a black media. How much are you supporting your black media? How much in the world have changed? This what Spike said something, and it's been in my head why he said it. He said about our rights as human beings, that we are under the civil rights law. And they vote on every so many years. Are we, for our rights, for African Americans? African Americans, not no other group, just us. They vote every other year. In the Twitter world now, to you young, I hate it. I hate to, I'm still learning the text. I'm still moving slow on the text, but I'm getting it done now. But y'all tweet, y'all do all these things, and you need to tweet. He said something. He said something that popped my ear. You need to tweet the congressmen and Congressman Ellison and McCullum, and you need to tweet them and say, hey, I want that off the book. I want full participation. Whether we get it, whether you get it done. I'm saying this to this group, these